Tonight, the major clue just revealed in that Air India disaster, what the pilots said to each other just before they lost control. The new report just in on that crash that ended in a massive fireball, killing hundreds on board. Photos of the burned out controls, some of those switches in the wrong position immediately after takeoff, and why investigators are looking into whether one of the pilots intentionally cut off fuel to the engines. Also breaking tonight, the Jeffrey Epstein files dividing the top levels of the Justice Department. The FBI official and Trump ally threatening to leave the bureau after officials didn't release more files. President Trump in Texas 1 week after those deadly floods took homes and families, saying he's never seen anything like it. It comes as wildfire season takes off, the giant plumes of smoke at the Grand Canyon forcing evacuations, the lightning strike that set off the inferno, the incredible new details on the man dubbed the Devil of the Ozarks, how he escaped prison. He used a Sharpie to make his prison clothing look like a law enforcement uniform, plus what was inside that cart that helped him on the run. Our Dateline exclusive, the Diddy trial insiders speaking out for the first time. What his longtime personal assistant tells us she witnessed firsthand. The skyscraper-sized icebergs adrift and heading towards a small town. And the surprise in the sky, the helicopter dropping money and rose petals to fulfill one man's last wish. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And tonight, as we come on the air, we have some breaking news on that deadly Air India crash that killed 260 people. That flight, you see it right here, fell from the sky and crashed into a massive fireball. Investigators now revealing they believe the fuel supply to the engines was suddenly cut off. The question tonight, why? The new report with images and new details from that cockpit voice recorder indicating one of the pilots was heard asking why the fuel supply to the engines was cut off. That other pilot then saying he didn't do it. You can see the burned and scarred controls from the doomed flight right here. That may hold the clues to solving this mystery. We begin tonight with Tom Costello in Washington.
The preliminary Air India crash report says that seconds after Flight 171 took off, the fuel cutoff switches for both engines went from run to cut off. Within 1 second, the engines lost power. The report states in the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, why did he cut off? The other pilot responded that he did not do so. The switches were flipped back to run, but it was too late. The report says one of the pilots radioed a mayday as the plane soon crashed into a medical school dormitory.
This report suggests that those switches were moved by a person. Whether it was inadvertent or deliberate, we don't know yet, but those switches were moved by a person. 260
people on board and on the ground died. Newly released photographs show the plane's landing gear extended, as photos from the ground confirm, and the fuel control switches back in the run position. Sources with knowledge of the investigation tell NBC News the fuel switch comes with a safety guard. A pilot must pull up and twist it to turn it off. The plane's black boxes providing the first clues. There are 2 black boxes on board a plane. One of them is the cockpit voice recorder. With multiple microphones inside the cockpit, it records the conversations between the pilots and all of the alarms going off. The flight data recorder captures thousands of pieces of data about the plane's performance. Previously reported cameras in the cockpit might also provide critical evidence. John Ostrower is the editor-in-chief at theaircurrent.com. Why would that crew have turned off the fuel control switches? Is there any explanation for that?
They haven't ruled out sabotage. That's on the table, but I would say that everything is on the table at this point relative to all the possibilities for understanding why these switches moved.
And Tom joins us now live. Tom, let's be clear here. Is there any indication of a problem with the plane or its engines, or is this all pointing to the actions of the pilots?
At this point, it is all about the pilots. If investigators have found an obvious malfunction or defect with the 787 or the GE engines by now, they would have issued an urgent service alert. But so far, none. None issued by Boeing, the FAA, the NTSB, Boeing, GE engines, none. And the Indian Investigation Board says it does not recommend systemic actions linked to this crash. No global alert. Air India just out with a statement. Air India says that it stands in solidarity with the families and those affected by the accidents, and in fact, it acknowledges receipt of the report. Tom?
All right, Tom Costello with that stunning new report. Tom, we thank you. Now to our new reporting about a potential shakeup at the FBI over a disagreement about how much information to release involving the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Gabe Gutierrez is at the White House tonight. Gabe, this involves a top leader at the Bureau?
Yes, Tom. Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino is considering resigning after a heated confrontation with Attorney General Pam Bondi. That's according to a person who has spoken with Bongino and a source familiar with his interactions with Bondi. One of the sources saying Bongino is, quote, out of control furious at the Justice Department, is not releasing more information about Jeffrey Epstein, and is threatening to quit unless Bondi is fired. Now, during his time as a podcaster, Bongino questioned whether there'd been a cover-up over Epstein's death. In response to all this, the White House now says, quote, the continued fixation on sowing division in President Trump's cabinet is baseless and unfounded in reality. Tom?
All right, Gabe, we thank you. Out west, hot and dry conditions are stoking wildfires, forcing evacuations at one of the most popular tourist destinations in America, the Grand Canyon. Steve Patterson reports as crews get to work on the fire lines.
Tonight, the skies above one of America's greatest natural wonders, shrouded in plumes of towering smoke. The north rim of the Grand Canyon National Park now closed after the White Sage fire, sparked by a lightning strike, exploded overnight, rapidly expanding to more than 8,000 acres. Park officials telling tourists, get out now.
We're going to have people responding, trying to combat this fire as best as possible.
Whoa. Morgan Lane took this video from her property near the fire.
We got the live evacuation notice on our cell phones.
Meanwhile, across the border in Utah, the Deer Creek fire burning out of control, also forcing evacuations as crews attack the flames from the air. Back in Arizona, a major problem, sweltering conditions fueling the fire. Can you feel that smoke right now?
Yeah, you can smell it. It's crazy. It's very thick, you know, almost apocalyptic to just see these clouds of smoke just coming in.
Tom, no containment on this fire so far. The problem is crews are also battling the forecast, those high temperatures mixing with very strong winds and miles of this dry brush, all a recipe for the flames to spread. Tom.
Steve Patterson for us tonight. Steve, thank you. Now to the deadly flooding in Texas that claimed more than 120 lives. President Trump visiting the Hill Country today, surveying that damage and meeting with first responders and victims' families. Here's Morgan Chesky.
President Trump today on the ground in Kerrville, Texas, 1 week after the nightmare flood left a deadly wake of devastation.
I've never seen anything like it. A little narrow river that becomes a monster.
The president and first lady meeting with grief-stricken families and defending the local response after questions over whether more could have been done to warn those along the river.
It's easy to sit back and say, oh, what could have happened here or there, you know. Maybe we could have done something differently. This was a thing that has never happened before.
With the number missing slowly dropping, the death toll remains staggering. The flood's now claiming at least 121 lives. Today, authorities identifying Kellyanne Lightoll as the latest loss from Camp Mystic. The 8-year-old seen here singing at a recent Christmas concert. In Dallas, hundreds honoring another 8-year-old camper, Hadley Hannah, remembered with love near her hometown. Today's survivors reckoning with reality.
This was
living room.
In Hunt, Lori Lowe was home with her husband, waking up overnight to water rushing in.
I knew we were in trouble by the time we got to our truck, 3 feet deep, raging river.
This was her bedroom.
Danny Olivas giving us a heartbreaking tour of his gutted home.
We were just in shock looking at everything here, and everything was still inside floating, and we even had fish in one of the rooms in there.
Now an army of volunteers tackling this tragedy one day at a time.
You got your whole house in your front yard, and yet you somehow feel like one of the lucky ones here?
Very fortunate because we're alive.
And tonight here in Kerrville, as the number of these crosses grows alongside the death toll, search crews tell me they are prepared to be here working for the next several weeks, if not months. Tom.
Morgan Chesky again for us from Texas. Morgan, thank you. Now to the violent clashes as protesters try to block ICE agents from carrying out immigration enforcement operations, including at a cannabis farm in California. Liz Kreutz is there.
Tonight, we're learning more about this chaotic showdown between ICE agents who arrived at 2 Southern California cannabis farms executing search warrants and the protesters trying to stop them. This boy now looking for his mom, who he says is 2 months pregnant and among those detained Thursday.
I went to go to get my mom, but I can't get her.
Guadalupe Torres says her husband, a U.S. citizen and Iraq war veteran who works as a security guard here, was also detained. Video shows him arriving in his car, talking to agents, and later backing up as tear gas is deployed.
Where is the Constitution in this? Where is the U.S. in this? Like, we fought for this. We fought for your freedom, and he's not even free.
ICE tonight telling us Torres' husband was among several U.S. citizens arrested for assault. Border Czar Tom Homan condemning the violence against ICE agents, including these protesters throwing rocks at them. And the FBI tonight looking for this man appearing to pull out a gun and open fire on officers.
What happened in California is just another example of protesters becoming criminals. And they've been emboldened by even members of Congress who compare ICE to Nazis and racists and terrorists.
This latest clash comes after 2 violent incidents in Texas. In Alvarado, police say attackers opened fire during a planned ambush on an ICE detention center, wounding an officer. And in McAllen, an armed man was killed after shooting at a border patrol station. Back here in California, DHS saying 200 undocumented workers were arrested and at least 10 migrant children, some as young as 14, were found working there.
This marijuana plantation is a clear-cut example of labor trafficking and child trafficking, which are heinous crimes.
But immigrant advocates slamming President Trump's deportation efforts.
What is the mood right now in this community?
There's a lot of concern and a lot of fear to have the tear gas against civilians. The cruelty is the point.
And tonight, the farm says they fully comply with search warrants. Meanwhile, we've learned that a worker who fell during the chaos of the raids is now on life support. The Farm Workers Union previously said he had died. Tom.
Okay, Liz, we thank you. Tonight, we're learning stunning details in the escape of the convicted murderer known as the Devil in the Ozarks. A black Sharpie and a can lid, some of the items he used to escape. Priya Sridhar has our story.
Tonight, new details emerging on how a former police chief turned convicted murderer managed to escape an Arkansas prison. According to officials, Grant Hardin, seen here escaping an Arkansas prison back in May, wearing a makeshift law enforcement uniform, pieced together from old prison-issued clothing that the 56-year-old colored with a Sharpie. He designed a homemade badge from a can lid, a button, and a Bible cover.
Do we have any indication as to how long he had been preparing for this escape?
Not a specific. It had probably been, the ballpark of 6 to 8 months as to when he was probably actively getting the material together, starting to manufacture the uniform.
Authorities add that Hardin had with him a pair of wooden pallets fashioned together to make a ladder and later set up a base camp near the prison. 2 Arkansas prison employees have been fired, one for allowing Hardin to go outside the kitchen area where he worked unsupervised, and the other for opening the gate from a watchtower and letting him walk off prison grounds without verifying his identity.
You don't open that gate for anybody or anything when there's not a ground person there to verify who it is.
Hardin, the subject of several true crime documentaries, was dubbed the Devil in the Ozarks and was serving an 80-year prison sentence for killing a man and raping a school teacher. He was eventually found a mile and a half away from the prison. He has now been moved to a Supermax facility and faces new escape charges for which he's pleaded not guilty. Priya Sridhar, NBC News.
And we'll be right back with an exclusive with some of the key witnesses in the Diddy trial now speaking publicly for the first time to Dateline about the abuse and Diddy's instructions in those so-called freak-offs. Now to exclusive new interviews and details about Sean Diddy Combs' criminal trial a week after it ended in a split verdict. Combs' former assistant and an exotic dancer involved in those so-called freak-offs now speaking out to Dateline. Here's Andrea Canning.
Tonight, several insiders at the center of Sean Diddy Combs' criminal trial, once part of his closely guarded world, are speaking out to Dateline.
It was mania, and it was just toxic.
Capricorn Clark, a former personal assistant to Combs who testified for the prosecution, said she witnessed several disturbing incidents during her decade with him, including an assault on his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
I took Cassie back to Puff's house, and the minute we walked in, he started beating her up in front of me.
What do you do?
Cry, unfortunately. He had on underwear and a robe. He kicked her the entire time.
Sheree Hayes, an exotic dancer who also testified for the prosecution, participated in the so-called freak-offs involving Ventura, all while Combs watched.
The instructions was I was not supposed to look at him, acknowledge him, talk to him, and we both were supposed to act like he wasn't even there.
Despite that, Hayes says Combs directed the action, and Ventura seemed willing to follow his instructions.
I can't look at those reactions and confidently say it was duress. You know, it may have been, but I didn't read it that way.
Ventura sued Combs in 2023, accusing him of sexual abuse and sex trafficking. He settled for $20 million with no admission of wrongdoing, but not before it became public. After that came the criminal charges, the trial, and the verdict heard around the world.
In the matter of U.S. versus Combs, count 1, not guilty. Transportation for prostitution, guilty.
Combs was found not guilty of racketeering and sex trafficking charges, but will be sentenced in October for his conviction on 2 other lesser charges. Andrea Canning, NBC News, New York.
And you can see much more of Dateline's exclusive interviews with those insiders tonight at 9, 8 Central. And we're back in a moment with a wild scene in Detroit where it was literally raining money, thousands of dollars worth, why it was one man's dying wish. Stay with us. And we're back now with massive icebergs floating dangerously close to homes in Greenland. Look at that. These incredible images of skyscraper-sized icebergs close to crashing on shore. Local officials say they're aware of the iceberg's movement and are prepared for the worst. In Detroit, money, literally, look at this, falling from the sky. A helicopter hired to drop $5,000 and rose petals to honor the last wish from Daryl Thomas, who died last month. His sons got the chopper to drop all of that money. Thomas was a professional race car driver who was also a brother, father, and grandfather. And here at home, we're remembering a giant of politics. David Gergen died yesterday. He was a top advisor to 4 presidents across the political spectrum: Nixon, Ford, Reagan, and Clinton. He then was a mainstay as a political analyst on our televisions. David Gergen was 83 years old. And when we come back tonight, when a gunman showed up to his church, a deacon used his truck to stop a potential mass shooting. Now the community is giving him the keys to a brand new set of wheels. That's
Thank you so much. So happy.
Finally tonight, there's good news about the deacon who risked his life to save his community. Shaquille Brewster has this one.
So did our games. But that doesn't mean that we didn't have.
The live stream showed parishioners inside a Michigan church hearing gunshots and scrambling for cover.
Please, everybody come to the back.
But outside, just moments before, Deacon Richard Pryor was in his Ford F-150 running late for church that Sunday morning in June when he saw a gunman approaching the building wearing a tactical vest.
It wasn't a smile, it wasn't a smirk. He just kind of looked at me and he just turned and continued walking.
With a gun in hand?
Yes.
He called 911, but knowing even seconds were critical, Pryor struck the gunman with his truck, giving church security time to take out the suspect, helping to save dozens of lives.
He put a round through my truck that disabled my truck.
The incident leaving Pryor without a truck to use. But now,
Thank you again. Thank you.
A local Ford dealership gifting Pryor a prepaid 2-year lease on a brand new F-150.
I was overwhelmed. It was hard for me to kind of keep my emotions under control.
A more than 400 horsepower reward for his massive act of bravery.
All of us are capable of protecting each other.
A grateful community celebrating a deacon's heroic instincts. Shaquille Brewster, NBC News.
And that's Nightly News for this Friday. I'm Tom Llamas. Thanks so much for watching. Tonight and always, we're here for you. Good night. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.